Hi, everyone. This is Allison in New York. I'm abstinent and grateful today on the gray sheet. That means I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I commit those meals to my sponsor. I don't eat in between no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life without exception. My abstinent date is September 29th, 1991. I was 29 years old when I came in. I was abstinent in time for my 30th birthday, which was the most amazing gift ever. The most amazing gift I never wanted. Yeah. So I'm just going to try to give you like bullet points and not drag you through my whole history. And maybe I'll go back and forth because that's like a valued storytelling style, although I really love hearing about people's lives in chronological order. And I love hearing how people come into recovery. I'm always baffled when someone says, and I just picked up the phone and called AA. And I was like, what? So I'm the oldest of three kids. I was born in the 60s. I'm now 62. And my mother was a young working mother and I'd say very pro. Let's see, how do I put this? It doesn't really matter. Um, it probably doesn't really matter. Well, one thing I will say, she admitted she was a misogynist, so I'll leave it at that. So it was the time of like a lot of instant food, a lot of packaged food, which was probably a miracle back in the day, right? And so there was a lot of like eating out of boxes and bags. Maybe it made it to the stove, maybe it made it into the oven. There was chaos and confusion. My parents loved to party. So I was in that atmosphere, and the message was childhood is basically just something you have to tolerate until you turn 18, and then you're an adult, and then you can basically do whatever you want. That was the message, loud and clear. Drinking age back then was 18, which meant I had fake ID at 16. I was drinking at 14. And the drinking was what got me into recovery to start with, by the grace of God. There was a lot of, so it was the 60s and 70s. There were all these, it was mostly a time of magazines, right? Now it's social media. And all the magazines had a new diet in the magazine. And it was a very diet centered culture, not unlike it is now, but it was a very diet driven, very image appearance, very, image driven culture. And I always wanted to be thin. No one was ever really trying to work hard to not be thin, let's put it that way. And it was always about starting over. I'm going to start over tonight. I'm going to start over Friday. I'm going to start over Monday. It was a lot of Mondays, a lot of Monday. My life is going to be different. And there, underneath that starting over was the thrill of, I've been able to identify it. So I probably am addicted to excitement as well. And the thrill of that certain thing starting over or changing or happening on Monday. Kind of very similar to going back to school, that kind of thrill. And it doesn't surprise me that my anniversary is in September. So it was, over my eating history, it was really the two favorite choices were sugar and carbs. I was not binging on fruits and vegetables. Let's just be clear. And I was not binging on, large amounts of protein. Although if it were a holiday, maybe I would be standing in the kitchen, I would be eating off of other people's plates, things like that, probably to manage anxiety, etc. So my weight, I don't come from big numbers. I'm 5 foot, but I was I'll give some numbers just for perspective. So as a teenager, I was athletic. I don't even know what I weighed. It could have been like 120, 130, but I never felt like it was the right number. I always wanted to be like her. I wanted to be thin, tall and thin and glamorous. I was not. I was short and squat and athletic. And and I'm sure a lot of it too was hormonal. Like there's all these hormonal changes that we all naturally normally go through that wreak havoc on our metabolism, our appetites, etc., all kinds of stuff. I have a lot more appreciation for that now. It feels like there was no information back then. And if you did, it was hidden in like some kind of teen magazine, or I'd have to get my hands on, and it always felt like it just didn't feel like it wasn't material that I wanted to read. Let's put it that way. So had been in a small town, raised in a small, pretty sheltered town. I was under a lot of pressure with family, and it was, I mean, today it would be considered domestic violence. I'll just come right out and say it. Sexual abuse, domestic violence, incest, emotional, religious, a lot of control. I think my parents felt very out of control. And then the way they exerted control was with me, maybe not so much my other siblings, but definitely I was on the receiving end of a lot of their need to control. If they could control me, then maybe it would lower their anxiety. If I looked good on the outside, people would like us, they'd respect us. It's all that. It's nothing new. So I left my hometown when I graduated and went to college in Brooklyn, New York, which at the time was pretty tough. So I went from a very homogenous, white, far right religious, government setting to the complete opposite in the same country, where it was very dark. There was a lot of crime. I'm one of the only women. Well, I'm one of the only people that I know that was never held up. I did have a friend who was raped and murdered during my college years, one of my college friends. And it was just like, that's just how it was. And I probably thrived on the thrill of it and the getting over. And it was it was 1980, and you could walk down Myrtle Avenue and you could go to these stores. They were just storefronts and buy pot. And that's just how it was. Anyway, it was art school. So I majored in drugs and alcohol, psychedelics. I barely got through. And over those 4 years, I was introduced to a lot of different drugs and alcohol. I tried everything that was available. Thankfully, I did not get to some of the tough stuff that might have taken me out. And I watched, I could eat any way I wanted to. And I did a lot of stealing my roommate's food. I've heard those stories, where you eat down, you finish it off, and then you got to go buy another one and then replace it. And, all that drama. Putting myself in harm's way quite a bit because the grocery store was 24 hours behind the dorm. And I would go out at 2 a.m. to get my binge food. And really, I used working on an assignment overnight as an excuse so I could binge. It wasn't the other way around. I need to stay up and get this finished. I better go get something. No, it's I know, I'll just stay up on. Anyway, I see through it now. So my weight usually yo-yoed 30 pounds. So maybe I was a size 10 or so in high school. Now I would drop down from a 10 to a 0, 10 to a 2. And I thought when I was small, I thought it was amazing. I felt powerful. A lot of it was starving. Through starvation, I just restricted completely, or I just lived on cigarettes and coffee. And I just, that was the message. It was school. It was college. Amazingly, I got out of there, without losing my life or anything else. Stayed in New York, but not necessarily in that area. And it was only a few more years before I got into recovery. So I graduated school in '84. I finished, someone pulled me into my first AA meeting in '87. And I amazingly stayed. And my story is I came into recovery in AA, And now I was around all these other women who were in recovery, some of whom looked really good. And I would ask them, what are you doing? How did you do that? It took a little while. When I came in, I was probably malnourished, underweight, raggedy because I was living nightclub life and two jobs and all this stuff.
Five.
And five, thank you. And it was through other women in recovery that I understood there was OA, there were all these other food programs. I had no idea. It was 1987. There were no magazines about this. There were no TV shows. Nothing was on billboards. There was no social media. It was all pen and paper. It was all underground. When I think about that, it's amazing to me that I even got sober. I didn't want to stop drinking. I just didn't want to be miserable anymore. And somebody did me a favor and brought me to my first meeting. It was somewhere in there in the next couple of years that I met someone who was my binge buddy who'd had history with Grey Sheet, and we started going back to meetings. I came to meetings with her, and I've lived my life longer now in recovery than I did not in recovery, and so it's been a wild ride. It's been a crazy journey. The best thing I ever did for myself was not pick up again. The absolute best thing, and I feel like, if I take a stock of myself today, I'm in great health. I teach fitness, so I do fitness regularly. And that was not even by design. It's just like how I was led. But I haven't had sugar and some of these substances in my body for 30, what is it, 33 years? 33 years. And now I see the culture is like sugar is in everything now. Like it scares me. Like clearly the sugar industry was so threatened that they had to find a way to get it into all the food that's in the United States. And it's not, I don't, no one's twisting my arm to do this. I'm so grateful to do this. I'm actually on a women's retreat right now, AA, and I'm the only one who's not binging my brains out here. I'm enjoying myself. I'm doing service. I'm showing up. I'm actually in charge of food this weekend. I'm learning. I'm learning from them. I'm learning from myself. I am not an expert. I am not completely finished. I'm not better than. I'm super lucky though. And I'm super grateful that I want to do this. Other people, women, see me doing this and they don't want it. They don't want it. Whatever, to each his own. I'm also an Al Anon, so I'm really letting go of the need to help and fix others around me who don't want it because, they're happy with the way things are going. So I'm just going to say I'm very grateful to be here. So, like, abstinence is more important and more meaningful to me now than it ever was. So grateful I don't have to binge. I've got a great support network. I'm grateful for all of you, and I'm going to stop there. Thanks for my abstinence.